And begin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Jackie, and thank you to everyone who's taking time out of their day today to attend this workshop. My name is Courtney, and I'm one of the attorneys at DPS. Also on with us today, we have our General Counsel for DPS, Mitchell Kroc, who you might hear jump in at different times during the workshop. So today we're going to cover the different programs the city offers and different bid incentives to make sure when you're bidding to do business with the city, you can maximize your chance at being awarded a contract. So you're going to hear me go through quite a few different programs and incentives today, rather quickly just because of volume. And I do just want to flag that when you're actually bidding, to make sure you have all the details you need beyond even what's in this presentation, you'll want to make sure that you're looking at the details in your bid package regarding programs and incentives, as well as if you go to our DPS website at chicago.gov/DPS, there's an entire rules and regulations section where you'll be able to find information on each of these programs and incentives that I'm about to go through, and that will have not only the information covered in this presentation, but also really into the nitty-gritty details that we're not able to cover today. And of course, at the end of the presentation, as Jackie mentioned, we'll also take any questions you have that we haven't covered. And before we jump into the details on the programs, just want to make sure everybody knows a little bit of background on our department. DPS is the contracting authority for procuring goods and services for the city. And we work together as a team with customers to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process. And we do this by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. So first today, we're going to cover the different programs the city has. And there are 7 different programs that we're going to cover. They're all listed up here. And the first one we'll talk about is the Small Business Initiative for Construction. And this program is designed to encourage small businesses to participate in city-funded construction projects for a value of up to $10 million in total costs. And I just wanted to flag before I get into the key points on this, if you've done business with the city in the past, you might notice a little of the information for this program, as well as the next program, have changed slightly as of January 1st of this year. This program was updated. So that's another reason that when you're bidding, you want to just make sure you go to the city website and the bid package to make sure you have all the most up-to-date information. So for this program to qualify, you need to be a small local business. And what that means is that you have your principal place of business located in the 6-county region. So that's going to be Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will County. And there are 2 tiers to this program, SBI 1 and SBI 2. For SBI 1, this is for all estimated projects with a cost of $2 million to $10 million. And for this, bidders cannot exceed 1.5 times the Small Business Administration size standards and 1.5 times the certification personal net worth limits. And for SBI 2, this is for the smaller projects that are under $2 million. And for this, bidders cannot exceed half the SBA size standards and half the certification personal net worth limits. One other thing for this program, to participate, the small business needs to be performing the majority of the work either with its own workforces or its own workforces and a combination of subcontractors with other small local businesses. The next program is the Mid-Sized Business Initiative for Construction. And this is designed to increase small and mid-sized business participation in city-funded construction projects. So this is similar to the Small Business Initiative, but is for construction projects of $10 million to $20 million. To participate in this, you need to be a small or a mid-sized local business and located within the 6-county region. And for this, bidders can't exceed 2 times the SBA size standard and 2 times the certification personal net worth limits. And again, at least 51% of the work needs to be performed by either the mid-sized businesses' own forces or subcontracted out to other mid-sized local businesses. Then we have the non-construction mid-sized business initiative, and this is designed to increase small and mid-sized business participation in city-funded projects that are not construction-based. So this covers projects that cost anywhere from $3 million to $10 million. And similarly to the construction mid-sized business initiative, it's only for small and mid-sized local businesses. And again, the principal place of business needs to be located in the 6-county region. And you'll want to make sure at least 51% of the work is being conducted by the mid-sized businesses' own forces or subcontracted out to other mid-sized local businesses. So in those first few programs, you probably heard a lot of similarities. So this next program, the Diversity Credit Program, is quite different from the ones we've discussed so far and involves private contracts. So this is designed to increase participation of MBEs and WBEs in private contracts by making that participation eligible for credit towards MBE goals on a city contract. So the way this would work would be if you have a private contract where there's no affirmative action goals, but you choose to use MBEs or WBEs anyway, and they're performing direct commercially useful functions, and that work is in an area that's been specially certified by the city, then you would qualify for this program, which would allow you to get $1 of credit for every $3 earned by MBE and WBE vendors, for a maximum credit of 5% on a city contract. So just to give this a little practically, if you earned the maximum amount, the 5% credit in this, and you were bidding on a city contract with, say, a 25% MBE goal, if you wanted to apply your 5% credit, that could bring that down to a 20% goal on the contract. And when you're using credits from this program, they can only be used one time, and they would expire after a year if you haven't used them. The next program is the Mentor Protege program, and this is designed to increase participation and capacity of MBEs and WBEs in city contracting by making MBE and WBE utilization and mentoring eligible for credit towards MBE, WBE goals on city contracts. So if you plan to participate in this program, you'll want to indicate at your time of bid that you want to participate in the program, and you'll create a written mentor protege agreement that will ultimately need to be approved by the CPO. And that agreement will be designed to make sure you're assisting the protege and becoming its own self-sustaining, competitive, and profitable business. If you're looking to get an idea of what one of these agreements looks like, if you go to the rules and regulation section of the DPS website that I had mentioned previously, and you click on the link for the rules for the Mentor Protege program, there's actually a sample agreement that can give you a pretty good idea of what we were looking for there, and will get you all the details on what you'd need to include. But if you do participate in the program, you can get a 0.5% participation credit for every 1% performed by the protege, up to 5%. And this can be done by having either the prime mentoring an MBE or WBE, or you can have a subcontractor mentor the MBE or WBE. And I also wanted to flag that while in this part of the presentation, we're really focusing on programs before we get into incentives a little bit later, the Mentor Protege program not only lets you get that up to 5% credit, but you also would be, the prime might be eligible for a 1% bid incentive as well through this program. And the next program is the Target Market Program. And this is designed to provide opportunities for MBEs and WBEs to be the exclusive bidders on city non-construction contracts. So to participate in this program, you need to be an MBE or a WBE, or you can be a joint venture that consists exclusively of MBEs, WBEs, or a combination of the two. And prior to bidding, you just need to make sure that you're certified by the city as an MBE or WBE. And even though with this program, you do want work conducted by MBEs or WBEs, the prime contractor is able to subcontract up to 50% of the dollar value of the contract to subcontractors who are not MBEs or WBEs. And then the last program to cover today is the MBE WBE phased graduation program. And this is designed to maximize diversity in the city's contracting by making established businesses eligible to continue to participate in the city's MBE and WBE construction and non-construction programs for at least 3 years. So sometimes we have MBEs and WBEs that have been certified, but then end up being no longer eligible to be certified because essentially they've become too big to remain certified. And that can happen by exceeding the gross receipts or employee size limits for certification, or its owners might exceed the personal net worth limit set for certification. In the event that that happens, rather than just immediately being out of the city's MBE and WBE construction and non-construction programs, this program kind of lets you be eased out of those programs by letting you be considered a participating established business for 3 years after you can no longer be certified. So in the first year, you'd get a 75% credit for participating in new city contracts. So for each dollar paid to the firms, the prime contractor could be credited 75 cents of participation, and this would decrease to 50% credit in the second year, and then 25% credit during the third year if you were starting a new contract then. And then moving on to bid incentives, we have quite a few to cover today, and they're all listed here that we'll cover, and you'll just see that I'll flag it as we're going through as well, but some of these are for construction only projects, some only for non-construction, and then some can be applied to both. So the first ones you'll hear me discuss are construction only. And the first one is the Apprentice Utilization Bid Incentive. This is designed as an incentive to encourage city prime contractors to utilize apprentices on construction projects that have an estimated value of $100,000 or more. And in this case, when we say apprentice, what we mean is a person who is sponsored into an apprenticeship training program by a contractor that is authorized by a union to sponsor apprentices, and is also enrolled in or graduated from a construction technology training program that's administered by city colleges of Chicago, or alternatively is a graduate of a high school that's operated by Chicago Public Schools. So this incentive allows you to get credit for future contracts. So how this would work would be at the time of your bid, you would commit to having a certain percentage of work performed by apprentices. And then at contract closeout, if you actually did have that percentage of work performed by the apprentices, you could earn credit for a bid incentive on a future contract. So those credits would be good for 3 years and would only be able to be used for one contract. So there are 2 tiers on the incentive. If you commit to 5 to 10% of the work being performed by apprentices, you can get a 0.5% bid incentive. And if you commit to 11 to 15% work performed by apprentices, you can get a 1% bid incentive. The next bid incentive is the Equal Employment Opportunity Bid Incentive. This is designed to increase utilization of minority and women journey workers, apprentices, and laborers on construction projects that have an estimated value of $100,000 or more. And this incentive uses a canvassing formula, and in it, bidders will propose the amount that they plan to utilize minorities and women for work hours on the project. And For purposes of calculating the bid incentive, the commitment cap for female workers is 15%, and the cap for minority workers is 70%. And I just want to emphasize that when you're seeing those caps are solely for calculating the bid incentive. We certainly don't put a limit on the amount of minority and women workers that you can have on projects. That's just the cap for calculating the incentive. And under this incentive, bidders will be given 150% credit for every work hour that is performed by a minority or female worker residing in a socioeconomically disadvantaged area. And those areas are designated on a map that's developed by the Department of Planning and Development that actually a little later in the presentation will have that map for you to see. And after completing the numerical calculations that are set forth in the canvassing formula, the final calculation is going to represent the award criteria figure that the bids are going to be compared by. The next bid incentive we have is the ex-offender apprentice bid incentive. And this is designed for city prime contractors to sponsor and utilize ex-offender apprentices for construction projects with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. And in this, DFSS works with delegate agencies to recruit, screen, and refer potential qualified candidates. And all candidates will go through an initial intake process where their eligibility for the program is determined. And similar to the apprentice utilization bid incentive I mentioned earlier, this would involve earning a credit for a future contract. And these credits are good for 3 years and can be used to win and can just be used on one contract that you would win in the future. There are 2 tiers in this incentive. If you commit to 5 to 10% of labor hours being performed by apprentices, you can earn a 0.5% bid incentive on a future contract, and 11 to 15% labor hours by apprentices, you can earn a 1% bid incentive on future contracts. Then we have the project area subcontractor bid incentive. And this incentive is designed for city prime contractors to utilize project area subcontractors for construction projects. And when we're saying project area in this context, that's going to vary depending on the project, what's the designated project area, but your bid package will always indicate what the project area is, so you would know what that was when you're actually bidding. And to qualify for this incentive, the subcontractor must be a small business, and that'll be based on SBA size standards. And the subcontractor must conduct meaningful day-to-day business at a facility that's located in the project area, and it must be the place of employment for the majority of the regular full-time workforce. The subcontractor also must hold all required city licenses and must be subject to city taxes. This is another tiered incentive that you see. You can earn anywhere from a 0.5 bid incentive up to 2% bid incentive, depending on how much work you commit to be performed by project area subcontractors. And just to know, as we're talking about project area, because it's closely related, the municipal code does require that contractors on projects that have an estimated value of $100,000 or more have at least 7.5% of the work performed on the contract by project area residents and 50% by city residents. Any work hours that are performed by project area residents will ultimately be considered work hours performed by city residents for purposes of calculating that minimum hour percentage required for city residents. And then the last of the bid incentives that only applies to construction projects is the veteran-owned subcontractor utilization bid incentive. And this incentive applies to contracts for construction projects, and it's designed to encourage utilizing veteran-owned subcontractors in performance of the contract. So to qualify for this, bidders need to be either a veteran-owned small local business, or they need to utilize VBEs as subcontractors. This is another tiered incentive where the percentage bid incentive you'll get will be based on the commitment that you make to use veteran-owned subcontractors. So you can earn anywhere from a 0.5% bid incentive up to a 2% bid incentive using this. Next, we have the city-based manufacturer bid incentive. And this bid incentive is for non-construction only projects since it's based on manufacturing goods. And it's designed to increase contracting and supply opportunities and participation by city-based manufacturers. And to qualify for this incentive, the manufacturer needs to be licensed, taxed, and operating in the city. And the contract that you're bidding on has to be for goods for an estimated value of $100,000 or more. And you can earn anywhere from a 1% bid incentive up to a 2% bid incentive, depending on what percent of goods you commit to being provided by city-based manufacturers. Now, from here on out, all of the incentives that I discussed will be for both construction and non-construction projects. And the first of those incentives is the alternatively powered vehicles bid incentive. And as the name implies, this is designed for city vendors to use alternatively powered vehicles in their business fleet. To qualify for this, an eligible business needs to meet 3 criteria. They need to be located in the 6-county region. And again, that's Cook County, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will County. A majority of the fleet, which has to be at least 10 vehicles, needs to be located and used in the 6-county region. And finally, the majority of those vehicles need to be alternatively powered. And there's no set list that limits which fuels are considered alternative fuel, but just to give you an idea of some that qualify, natural gas, liquefied petroleum, hydrogen, ethanol, E85, all would be considered alternative fuel for this incentive. And this incentive applies for contracts with a value of $100,000 or more and can get you a 0.5% bid incentive on the contract. Then there's the business enterprises owned or operated by people with disabilities incentive. And this is designed to increase contracting opportunities and participation by business enterprises that are owned or operated by people with disabilities. So to qualify for this, the business enterprise needs to be 51% or more owned by a person with a disability, and you need to be certified by the city as a BEPD. You can qualify for this either at the prime or subcontractor level. And this is another tiered incentive where you can get anywhere from a 1% bid incentive up to a 4% bid incentive if you commit to participation of 14% or more by a BEPD on a contract. We also have the city-based business bid incentive, and this is designed to increase contracting opportunities and participation by city-based businesses. This applies on contracts of $100,000 or more and has 3 tiers that kind of build off of each other. So the first tier can get you a 4% bid incentive if the business is a city-based business that conducts meaningful day-to-day business from a facility in the city. A majority of the regular full-time employees work out of a city facility. The business holds all city licenses, and the business is subject to applicable city taxes. So if you meet all those criteria, you qualify for the 4% bid incentive. If you meet all of those criteria, plus the majority of the regular full-time workforce are city residents, that would be bumped up to 6% bid incentive. And then if you meet all of those qualifications and the majority of your city resident workforce also happens to live in socioeconomically disadvantaged areas, this would change to an 8% bid incentive. So you can see as you add in those qualifications, you can go up in percentages. And just to note, you can only qualify for one of the tiers in this incentive. So if you qualify for the 8% bid incentive, you would just get the 8%. You wouldn't add the 6 and 4% as well. And then I had mentioned both with the city-based businesses and earlier with the equal employment opportunity program, socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. And here is the map that's generated by the Department of Planning Development that shows where those areas are. Everything in red is what's currently designated as a socioeconomically disadvantaged area. And there's a link as well on the slide that shows where you can go on the DPS website. It's also under that rules and regulations section to see the map. And if there's a more current version, it would be there. It would also be in your bid package. We also have a bid incentive to encourage MBE and WBE participation. And this is designed to encourage participation of MBEs and WBs on contracts where no goals can be assigned. So if you do business with the city, you will see, and more often than not, MBE and WBE goals on contracts. But sometimes those participation goals aren't possible because there's an insufficient number of certified firms. In that event, you'd see 0% goals on the contract. But to still encourage participation of MBEs and WBEs, we'd encourage you to apply for this incentive, in which you would submit a compliance plan with your bid that would indicate what percent of work you plan to have MBEs and WBEs perform. So that participation can occur at the prime or subcontractor level, and it can be direct or indirect. And here's a table that just breaks down the different bid incentives you can earn depending on what percentage of the estimated contract dollar amount you commit to having MBEs and WBEs perform. And you can get anywhere from a 0.75% bid incentive up to a 2% bid incentive with this. We also have the veteran-owned and small business joint venture bid incentive. And this is designed to increase contracting opportunities and participation by small local veteran-owned business enterprises and eligible joint ventures that consist of one or more veteran-owned business enterprise. And this is for contracts that are valued at $100,000 or more and results in a 5% bid incentive. So there are two ways to qualify for it. You can either be a VBE, in which case you can qualify on your own without, you don't need to joint venture with another business to qualify for this. If you're a VBE, you just need to have 51% or more veteran ownership, and you need to be certified by the city. Alternatively, you can also apply for this incentive as a JV. And if you do, there are just a few more qualifications that you need to meet. All the members must be a small business enterprise, veteran-owned business, or both. At least one member needs to be a VBE. All of the SBEs must collectively have at least a 30% interest in the JV. All the VBEs must collectively also have at least a 30% interest in the JV. And the JV partners must self-perform at least 20% of the work. And finally, none of the JV members can act as brokers. Then the last bid incentive we have to discuss today is the diverse workforce and management bid incentive. And this is designed to encourage contractors to employ a diverse workforce and management. It applies to contracts that have a value of $100,000 or more. And to qualify for this, bidders need to have either a diverse workforce, diverse management, or both. So there are two tiers to this incentive, and these can be combined. So if you have a diverse workforce, you can get up to a 6% bid incentive. And if you have a diverse management qualified, you can have up to a 4% bid incentive. So actually, if you together, this incentive can result in a 10% bid incentive with the management and workforce together if you qualify for that. And now that we've kind of run through all the different incentives that you might have in your bid and how to qualify for them, just wanted to give a little information on how this actually works with your bid. So when you pick up your bid package, any applicable incentives will be listed in that package, as well as what you need to submit in order to be considered for that incentive. So usually there'll be an affidavit, and sometimes there'll be a request for additional documentation to submit with the incentive as well. You want to make sure you're just reading that carefully and submitting anything that the bid package requires you submit, because in the event that additional documentation is requested for a bid incentive and you don't submit it, the incentive won't be applied to your bid if you were missing requested documentation. However, if you're eligible and you submit everything that you needed to submit for that incentive, your bid will ultimately be reduced in the amount of the incentive, and that'll just be for evaluation purposes only. So the incentives can end up being very useful to you, since bids are awarded to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. Sometimes the incentives can be the difference, since they lower your bid for evaluation purposes and awarding contracts. Also just wanted to flag that some of the incentives cannot be combined. We touched on this a little earlier with the city-based bid incentives. I won't read through this whole list for you, but you can see here that a number can't be stacked together with each other. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're deciding which ones you want to be applying for when you're bidding. And then you can also find all of this information in the rules and regulations section on the DPS website when you're looking at the information on each of these bid incentives. And then finally, just want to go through what happens after a contract's awarded. You may be required to submit documentations at either contract closeout or during the performance of the contract that demonstrates you're actually meeting the commitments that you committed to at the time of bid. And failure to meet those commitments can result in either fines up to 3 times the amount of the incentive that was granted, denial of earned credit certification that occurs. For instance, some of the incentives I had mentioned, you commit at the start of bidding, and then at contract closeout, you're evaluated for whether you actually got the credit to apply for a future bid. That's when that denial of credit certification could come into play. And finally, a finding of non-responsibility, which would mean that you would not be eligible to be awarded the contract that you were found non-responsible for. And with that, that wraps up what we had planned to discuss on bid incentives and programs. So I will turn it back over to Jackie for us to start on questions.
Thank you so much, Courtney. And if you have questions, feel free to fill out the Q&A panel at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Right now, I see that there are no questions, but I'm sure as always, we'll get a question or two in just a second. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill that out. But as always, Courtney, you have given a thorough presentation, and so there might not be any questions. Oh, we have one. Can we get a copy of the slides emailed? I just emailed, I'm sorry, I just put in the chat where you can find a copy of the slides. I say just be patient just a second. We will get them over there. These current slides, but there are some slides similar in an old format over there, but I will get these over there as soon as possible. So keep checking back till you see them. But I did put that information in the chat box. So hopefully you are able to see that. Are there any additional questions that Courtney can answer for you? Well, I guess not. So with that said, wait a minute. We got something that's come through. Make sure you put your questions in the Q&A panel so that I can get them in the Q&A panel. But I'll go ahead and ask this one here. Is there anyone who we can speak to with one-on-one? One-on-one for what? So if you can put your question in, what you need one-on-one, or if you want to talk with someone on one-on-one, I just need to know what so I can direct you to the correct person to get your information covered. As a general one-on-one, that's why we have assist agencies. So if there's information that you just generally need to know, or if there's information that we can answer that is just general information that we can answer, we can do that. I just need to know what the question is, and you can send it to dps.events at cityofchicago.org, and I can get it to whoever needs to answer that question. However, if there's a person that you can just come to DPS and sit it down and do a one-on-one with, we don't have that here, but we do have assist agencies that can help you in that.
And Jackie, this is Mitchell.
Mhm.
In addition to all of that information, if there are questions about bid incentives and programs, Jackie, I'm somewhat embarrassingly blanking on what the email address is for sending general questions to DPS. It's inquiries line. Do you remember the email address for that?
If you're talking about dps.feedback at cityofchicago.org.
That might be the one.
Feedback
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
DPS feedback is an email email address that you can use to send just general questions. And like I said, they still come to me, and we disperse them throughout DPS, the DPS department, to the appropriate person that needs to answer that question. But we have to have a question. That's what I'm trying to get to. We don't, and I really want to make sure that the person understands, we really don't have a person to sit down one-on-one, but we do have people to answer questions for you. I just need to know what the question is so I can direct you to the right individual.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else that might have a question? All right. I would just recommend that, if you want to review this one before I can get it up online, feel free to go back in the recordings into youtube.com/Chicago DPS and put in the title of this workshop, and archived copies of that will come up. The best thing about that is you get other questions that might jog something, and you might want to ask something off of that question, because they have answered questions off of there. That's a great way that you can get some information. But I will be posting these soon. It's just that I'm, like I said before, a one-woman show at the moment, and I'm a little challenged as far as a lot of getting a lot of these up, because we do these every week. So if you give me just a second, keep checking back. This one will be up. But if you can't wait, there are already some archived copies in there, and there are the PowerPoint is online with the link that I have just provided. The PowerPoint is online where you can get a copy of the PowerPoint as well. There might be a few things that might be different, but I'll get this PowerPoint up online as well. With that said, I guess there are not any additional questions. Courtney and Mitchell, you all have done a wonderful job of giving that information, Courtney. So I am going to say thank you to the two of you for coming and sharing information, and thank those attendees that stopped by to hear the information, and hopefully you can garner some contracts with the city of Chicago more efficiently with this information. Again, if you have additional questions, feel free to use either the dps.events at City of Chicago, because that comes up right after this. You can get your question to that. That comes to me as well. Or you can send an email to dps.feedback@cityofchicago.org. And I will get that along with other people. We all get that email, and we will get that to the appropriate person, answer your question so that you can move forward. Thank you for attending, and we will see you at the next workshop. Stay safe, stay well, do all the things so that we can be in a room networking with you person to person. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you at the next workshop.
Thank you, Jackie.
Courtney and Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you.